Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. I am absolutely delighted to see that so many of you, without me even mentioning it, have already got your notepads and pens handy. For those of you who do not, please grab those now. Take a moment to do so because I want you to take notes. I want you to make a commitment that you will jot down some sort of action item that you will implement in your business today to drive your business forward. That's what this is all about, driving your business forward. We all know, any of you who have been watching my videos for a while, you know how much I harp on and emphasize the importance of measurement and analyzing your data and trying to keep on top of good performance analytics. We talk about that which is measured improves. And you've also heard it said, garbage in, garbage out, and that's very relevant to the world of data analysis. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about data analysis and precision within your analytics. And how you have to do that is through the exclusion of misleading data. Now, I was thinking about one example where there was a team that I managed, and it was a brick and mortar location, automotive retail location, and as customers would come in, the sales team would go to our website in order to build and sort of configure a pricing quote for customers. And they were doing it on the very same pages, the very same tool that a customer would. So if you were trying to attract customers from from your target market, and you built a platform through which they could go in and evaluate your products and services, learn about them, talk about the features and benefits on your website and everything, and then they can build a price quote and configure a vehicle in the way they wanted in this example. Well, our sales team were following the exact same steps that our prospective market would follow from home. Therefore, you could see that if we were analyzing the data of how often price quotes were saved or how many visitors to the site and that kind of thing were happening, we would have our data skewed. It would be off. We'd have to factor in the count of how often our staff was doing that, or we'd have to somehow exclude that. So I wanted you to look at that today. I want you to consider this, and let's just really briefly talk about the various ways that this can happen and make sure that the data you're looking at is accurate, is precise. Now, I would say that it all starts, of course, with measurement. If you're not already measuring this kind of stuff, you have to start there and visit our videos in which we talk about the importance of performance analytics, and especially those things related to marketing. And that's what I'm really focused on today, is marketing and you being able to anticipate way upstream what the pipe looks like for prospective business coming your way that hopefully will convert. You have this whole journey. The customer goes through a journey, the trail to a sale, or the customer journey toward through various conversions towards sales. And the further upstream you look at that and you start to measure those conversions and do your counts, you can actually get a very good idea of what to expect in terms of conversions to revenue today, tomorrow, and the next day. So if you're not already doing that, that's where you have to start, and visit one of our videos in which we talk about that. And let's get started with that. In your business, maybe that's what you're going to jot down as your action item today, is if you're not already measuring these types of things, your conversion, if you haven't already mapped out your customer's journey and defined what the various conversions are and started to look at recording those things and giving yourself some sort of expectation and target about what a good conversion rate is. So for example, your customers Google search for some search terms that relate to your products or services. What percentage of people who see your website come up as an option are actually clicking on that and ending up on your website? So you're counting those. and then what percentage of those actually stay on the website for X number of minutes or whatever, and what percentage of those convert to the next part of the journey, which is to fill out a customer form where they're asking for more information, or maybe they're signing up for your newsletter. You got to figure out the various stages that you're trying to guide customers through and count all that. And if you haven't already done that, start there. But for those of you who are already doing that, congratulations. And what I want to talk about today is the fact that you might be counting some things that are misleading, such as the example I have is you may have team members who are mixed up and they are conflated within your numbers that you are using. Now, if that doesn't change over time, you're really comparing apples and apples. But if that can change from one time to another based on some condition, that becomes a confounding factor for you in trying to make sense of your data and really interpret it in such a way that you're going to be able to strategize and manage around that. So we really want to look at what all the various types of things that can skew that data, that can distort it. And consider, besides employees is one, but who else may be ending up in your data count that you may need to somehow filter out or exclude. So I was thinking about vendors. Maybe there's some sort of tool on your website that your vendors access. Or what about your contact page? You're assuming that all the people that are visiting your contact page are prospective customers? Or and then of course you have on the mobile contact page, you will be able to, in your Google Analytics, be able to tell how many people use the mobile link directly from your contact page and dialed from there, and all that kind of stuff. But if your staff or your vendors are doing that, then that can skew the data. And once again, you're counting wrong, therefore your conversion percentages are all wrong. Who else? So what about your competitors? Sometimes you're visiting your competitor's website undoubtedly, and depending on what industry you're in and the degree to which it's highly competitive would influence how many competitors may be visiting your site and trying to glean information about your operation. And are those numbers big enough to actually skew the data, and maybe those need to be filtered out in some way? Another one that I've run into throughout my management career and observed a lot is employment applicants or candidates. Those people who are researching your company and they're interested in working with your company. So it may not just be, you might say, okay, well, in order to exclude those, I won't look at those pages. I won't count the pages, our career section, where those pages through which people apply for positions and that kind of thing. And that's great. That's one idea for excluding these and filtering these out. But sometimes those very applicants are researching the various other pages on your website to get an idea of who you are and find out about your organization so they can determine whether or not they want to work there. So applicants is another big one that can skew your data. So give consideration to whether or not there is, from time to time, a stark change and difference in the amount of positions that you're advertising and that kind of thing, because that can really skew your traffic count on your website. Another one is spammers, those people or AI that are trying to get information in order to just spam you because they want to sell you things. And then there's bots. I talk about AI. There are bots that are actually going out and scouring the internet and even creating accounts and all that kind of stuff. There are these AI, these bots that are able to do some things and mimic customer or prospective customer lead behavior. So, and it's not just your website. So the other thing you need to consider is, in what areas are these things skewing your data? So of course, your web session count, your unique visitors, the length of time that people are on your page. What about the number of subscribers to your email campaigns or to your newsletter? All these kinds of things. Take a look at the various ways that your data, or the various ways that you collect data, and count that, and then give some consideration to what might be skewing that, what misleading data might you be counting because you're failing to exclude or filtering that out? And in science, they talk about controlling for a specific thing. So you need to control for the possibility of your staff using something time and again. Do you have on your website a pricing calculator, some sort of tool that both your customers use and your staff and maybe your vendors and others use? And that can be something that you maybe didn't consider when you were counting and you were measuring. It's like, oh yeah, we have to exclude that. How can you exclude that? Another one that comes to mind is your content consumption. So if you're involved in content marketing, where you are creating content to be consumed by prospective customers to generate leads and hopefully get from that avenue people coming through your journey of a sale, is you're measuring that hopefully and you're counting that, but is a lot of your content being consumed by non-customers? Can you assume that? And this really goes from one business to another. It's going to vary greatly. Some people have content that's very interesting. Like I was just recently watching a woodworking YouTube channel, and the name of the company sounded familiar. The name of the channel sounded familiar, and sure enough, it was a local company who mentioned that like a year or 2 years ago, they created a video that went viral. And since then, they've got all these subscribers and their business has taken off and all this kind of stuff. But many of the subscribers, many of the content consumers have no interest in their products whatsoever. They're just watching, as I was in that particular case, for the interest of the particular project that was being worked on. So you may be creating content that is not really generating exclusive interest from your target market, and you're getting and there's nothing wrong with that. But today we want to talk about, all right, so does it skew the data? And I'm not telling you that you should necessarily exclude it. And in some cases, it's very difficult to exclude it. And we'll talk a little bit about the various methods, how you can exclude some of the data that's less relevant so that you have more precise analytic measurement or analysis, performance analysis, I guess what I'm trying to say. But that's why I talked about apples and apples. If you're looking every month and you just know, well, I'm getting more and more content consumed, I'm getting more and more views or subscribers, I'm getting more and more people that are reading and commenting on my blog and that kind of thing, you might say, well, that's just going in the right direction. And there's no reason to expect that the percentage of those content consumers are changing in terms of the ratio between real prospective customers and those who are just interested in the content and are never going to convert as a lead. If you have a reason to believe that that's fairly steady, then you don't really need to exclude it. You will settle on, maybe it's like 3% or 1% or 5%, depends on your industry, of which of those you expect on a monthly basis to convert to the next phase of the sales journey. And you don't have to really exclude them. It's good. It's reasonable data. It's something that you can analyze and you can strategize around. But I want to talk to you about, or I want you to give consideration to those times where the data that is in there is skewing things. And I've given you some examples of that. So content creation is another one. Let's look a little bit about, well, what can I do? So let's take that last example. What about content creation? Well, what you may want to do is exclude particular geographical regions. So if you have in your products or services are exclusively available for people in your local market, then you may want to take a look when you're looking at your YouTube views as an example. You might go, okay, well, people that are on the other side of the world, another continent, or even outside of your very local, within a, say, 50-mile or 100-kilometer radius of where I operate my business, I want to exclude those from the count. So you can do that. And all of a sudden your data becomes more relevant to you. And just make sure, again, apples and apples, if that's the filter you're going to use, make sure you use that again and again. And of course you can do that with your video views, and you can also do that with your website traffic count. You can sort of geofence and only look at, and you can advertise and do pay-per-click or search engine marketing within a geofence or a particular geographic location, and you can exclude everything else. So give some consideration to that. You can exclude IP addresses in a lot of tools from appearing. So when people are being counted as a web session or as a unique visitor, if I am that example, what we used to do is exclude our IP address for our brick and mortar location. So we would say, well, if the staff are using that pricing calculator, that particular tool, if our staff are on the website looking up stuff and reading stuff for their own interest, for their own product knowledge and everything, they are not being counted and skewing our data. So consider excluding IP addresses from being counted. As you're analyzing this kind of thing and then it occurs to you, ooh, yeah, we may actually be having a problem with a specific thing, then you can actually create a separate portal or window through which certain stakeholders can access information so that they're not going to the same place as your customers. So in my example of a vendor or your staff or anyone else, you could say, okay, when you're pricing things out, when you're going to use that tool, you use this staff location or here's a vendor one. Now you can do that through communication and insist upon that for your people, but people will, like water, they go where the path of least resistance. So what I would do is make it, align your incentives, align your objectives by making it more useful to them and more easy for them to go to the place you want. So if you had your staff pricing something out or using a quotation tool that's on your website, maybe have a separate one that gives a few extra benefits for staff, a few extra resources or whatever, and that's the one that they use. And then create a vendor portal for your vendors to go in if there's something that your vendors need to do to communicate with you and you don't want them and their data being counted among other possible data that should be all customers, then create a separate place for them to go that has relevance for them. So they're not ending up on your contact page and dialing you from there. Also, the same thing goes for, incoming call count. Maybe you're counting how often you get calls and you're counting those as leads. All of these things you need to give consideration. What can we do to control the flow of information, control the journey and the process that people go through? What can we do to make it easy for our customers to go in one location? And if you've got incoming calls from, your staff's relatives, their loved ones are calling in to talk to them while they're at work or something like that, create a way. You could insist that they use their personal cell phones and that kind of stuff, but you can also create a way where, there's a staff line or a direct line or whatever, and those don't get mixed up in the count. I don't know what the example is for you. I'm trying to think over the years of the various things that I've witnessed where it can skew the count and the data. The performance analytics are not as relevant and they can be misleading because those are not customers you're counting. So give consideration to this and brainstorm it for your organization. Another really important way you can do this and get more precise data is through the use of your CRM or your email campaign tools. The software should enable you to have certain buckets of customers, different groups or categories of customers. And what you can do is you spend some time organizing your database. So as you have leads come in, as you have subscriptions and everything, you have somebody that's going through, you're purging duplicates and you are, getting rid of bots. You have a process set up for confirmation that someone is real and all these kinds of things. But then you start to bucket these. You put them in groups and categories. If these are hot leads, these are existing customers. Maybe you are counting that separate. It's really important for you to know these are existing customers and they're visiting our website for information and support on the products they already own, and over here these are customers or these are prospective customers, these are leads they haven't bought yet, and you want to categorize those differently. And again, you can set up different pages and different portals and different tools for those categories of customers, and also within your CRM tool and within your email campaign software, you can make sure that you break that out. And now what you're doing, in addition to counting the data more accurately, you're also nurturing your leads and servicing your customers much more efficiently and effectively. As with everything that we discuss on this channel, as with everything that you and I discuss in these topics, it all comes down to you having to do a little bit of an evaluation of your business and how this topic is relevant to how you operate. And all I'm trying to do is stimulate you to think of things. It's like, oh yeah, well, you might say, well, we don't have any staff that are visiting that section of our website, so our web traffic count is fine. Those are all customers. And then you think, oh yeah, but I never thought about differentiating between prospective customers, people who we've never sold anything to, and those that may be visiting our website for information, for support, and more information about the products that they've already purchased. And I do see that there's some value there. So I want you to think of these different things. I'm just putting it out there to stimulate your ideas, and then you brainstorm. That's why you have the notepad. That's why you create a homework assignment. Just one little thing that you implement. If it's not, you know, like just that one example of differentiating between existing customers, repeat customers, maybe there's VIP customers, and putting people in groups and buckets. Maybe you haven't done that. Give some thought to all of this stuff and strategize for your organization so that you can differentiate the various types of data and leads and prospective customers and VIP customers and everything, and you can optimize with that data. Because once you just look at data, and the reason I talk about why it's so important to just get started with counting is it's when you're counting and you get some outlying data that really causes you to realize this. You go, whoa, how come this particular metric is so far off of what is expected? It's way down, or it's way up, or whatever, and that causes you to explore and investigate a little further. And then you go, oh, right, okay, we were advertising for a particular job and we had a whole bunch of people apply, and that probably we didn't exclude that particular landing page for the career section or for that job posting. We didn't exclude that, so our web count is off because of that. So it all starts with measuring somewhere, and then when you see these outlying data points, that you go, oh, and that's how you can refine. That's how you can perpetually refine and make sure that you're getting more and more precise data. Now you would say, well, then it's not apples and then it's apples and oranges, not apples and apples. It's not comparing the same thing, because if I didn't control for that for applicants, as an example, in the past, now I am. There's a difference in what I'm recording. That's true, but you do want to get more and more accurate data anyway. And so as long as you understand that something's changed, then you can factor that into your evaluation and whatever management strategies you put in place. The key here is measure, consider the accuracy and the relevance of the data, filter out and exclude the stuff that is skewing your data and is misleading, and then continually refine over time. And keep on making these types of improvements, and the degree to which you do this in your competition does not, you are going to thrive in your market. You are going to beat the competitor, and that's what this is about. So I think that's where I want to leave it today. I hope you got something out of this, and I'm curious to hear from you whether or not this makes sense. Do you need me to clarify in further detail? Is there some data points that I missed, some really key ways in which data can be skewed? And are there some really good ideas for how to exclude that and filter for that I failed to mention? Put something like that in the comments, and other people in the community who are watching this can read the comments and can learn from it, because we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.